I'm Jayne Eastwood.
I'm Peter Feniak. And Jayne, another day of Lifetime, and for those of us who love the sound of women with dusky, husky voices, it's heaven today. You're on a panel with Charmian King and Barbara Hamilton.
Yes, and we'll all be lucky if any of us reach a middle C. They're really wonderful, wacky gals, and we're going to talk about women's friendships.
Okay, well, it should be good. And you have an expert, I think, who's going to help you analyze that. I'm also going to be talking to an expert today, and he is an expert on the use of the muscle between our ears. You know, you can work out the brain with a series of exercises that he has put together in a book. Very interesting stuff. Dr. John Tyson is here as well to talk about the relationship between aging, osteoporosis, and broken hips. It can be quite serious.
That's very interesting. Also, we're going to be going to Ottawa, that city of many, many laughs, and checking out a new improvisational comedy group called Skid Row. And these guys are pretty funny.
We begin the program, though, in kind of a scary way, also a scientific way, because one of the world's foremost forensic pathologists is here. And he is going to be taking us through the Jack the Ripper murder cases one more time. In fact, there is a team of experts working on new evidence, or working on evidence in a new way, and it should be fascinating, if a little frightening. We'll be back with that in just a moment.
Can I make a sandwich?
I don't know, can you?
No problem. Spice salami. Floaty. I get ya. Back. Space sandwich.
What is it? I don't know, but it makes great sandwiches.
Maple Leaf Value, the right taste at the right price. It's today's wise choice.
I give you one milk because it's good to chew. I'll give you two just because you are you. I'll give you three just to see you smile. That big, bright, clean, white Milk-Bone smile.
Milk-Bone, the only dog biscuit made with real milk, because your dog's teeth deserve the best.
I know for certain and I love you.
Isn't it good to know that no matter what happens, you can count on Glad garbage bags to make it to the curb? Glad garbage bags, the strong ones.
Madge! I know what's coming next. I soaked in it. Madge! I soaked in it!
Palmolive is soft on hands, and his thick suds get loads of dishes shiny and clean. Original or lemon lime Palmolive, soft on hands while you do dishes.
Tired of finding the powder you use to clean your dishes on your dishes? Get Liquid Palmolive Automatic. It pours easily and rinses so clean, you'll want to throw a party. Break away from powders with Palmolive Automatic in New Lemon, too.
For some reason, it is a series of crimes the world has never been able to forget. Between August 31st and November 9th of 1888, by night in the dim, fog-filled, gas-lit streets of a slum district of London called Whitechapel, 5 women, all of them poor, all of them prostitutes, were murdered and hideously mutilated by a man who boastfully called himself Jack the Ripper. This year is the 100th anniversary of those killings, and speculation on who the Ripper really was still haunts us and challenges.
I found it. So that's what makes your sister's hair so pretty. Shh. Alberto VO5 shampoo.
With 5 special ingredients.
3 for cleansing, 2 for manageability. VO5 shampoo.
Makes my hair do what I want it to.
Sugar Twin with real sugar taste. This Sugar Twin is sweetened with 100% NutraSweet. Only 2 little calories per packet. Real sugar taste from Sugar Twin. Only 2 calories per packet.
For years, I've tried to diet my way back into this size 10 dress, but diets had no flavor, so I cheated. Well, with Nutrisystem, it's going to be different. See?
I lost 52 pounds on the Nutrisystem Flavor Set Point weight loss program. I ate delicious food rich in flavor, so I never had to cheat. Thanks, Nutrisystem. I'm a 10 again.
For fast and easy weight loss, call Nutrisystem now and get 3 weeks for $49.
Is it finished yet?
No, it takes time to do it right.
Is it finished yet?
It's time. What did you want it for, son?
The Blue Jays, they're riding a 6-game win streak right now and catching pennant fever. Tonight, they meet the Detroit Tigers right here at 7.
BCTV, it's good to be here.
Anna Jameson, the pioneer poetess, was into plants. The pity I have for the trees in Canada. How do we know trees don't feel their downfall? We know nothing about it. A Canadian settler hates a tree, regards it as his natural enemy, as something to be destroyed, eradicated, annihilated by all and any means. A recent visitor complained that in Canada, there's too much of everything. Too much rock, too much snow, and above all, too much forest. Not quite, said naturalist J.D. Robbins. I can approach trees with joy and pleasure, but I approach a man with caution. When man has attained the trustworthiness of the tree, he may be allowed its freedom.
Good afternoon. Most believe the federal election campaign is now less than 2 weeks away. We know the Tories favor free trade, while the Liberals and NDP are against it. But what is the feminist agenda? Tomorrow on the noon news hour, we'll review the Canadian Advisory Council on the status of women's strategy for prodding all three parties. Also tomorrow, the male side of what may become the first husband and wife team in the House of Commons. External Affairs Minister and former Prime Minister Joe Clark. Along with the news of the day on the noon news hour.
Oh, BC is such a great place. For instance, the Caribou. Now, there's lots to do. Sure lots to see. Genuine people. Genuine hospitality.
It's good to be here.
Actual psychology cases revealed on Secret Lives coming soon.
Hi, I'm Jayne Eastwood.
I'm Peter Feniak, and Jayne, today on Lifetime, answers to some burning questions, right?
Yes. For instance, can you really be discovered beside a motel swimming pool in Saskatoon and turned into a cover girl overnight? Well, it doesn't happen very often, but Elmer Olson, who is a talent scout for a modeling agency, actually did that once. He finds raw material girls and turns them into international models.
All right. We also find out behind the scenes at Disney World. I wonder what that might be like.
Well, it could be devious, but I think it's probably okay. Kirsten Nielsen's going to tell us how all those underground networks work at Disney World to keep this great conglomerate going the way it does.
Okay. Look forward to that. I'll be talking about a medical subject, and that is radiation therapy. It was seen, in a way, as a cure-all in the 50s and 60s for all sorts of ailments. We are now much more careful with radiation treatments, but are people who were treated then having health problems now? We will ask a doctor and a patient, and should be interesting.
Yes, a little scary, too.
Yes, indeed.
And there's another scary topic, retirement people. Where is that money going to come from?
Exactly.
Now, Kim Ball is here to advise us how you can put away for that day that could be very rainy if you're not planned out well ahead of time.
We'll be listening. We begin the program, though, with one of the most interesting businessmen in Canada. They call him a playboy, but he is a very hard-working playboy, if there is such a thing. He is Peter Nygaard of Nygaard International. His business is booming, and he's a pretty interesting guy. We'll see him right after this.
Great.
Isn't it good to know that no matter what happens, you can count on Glad garbage bags to make it to the curb? Glad garbage bags, the strong ones.
How do I know which coffee to get?
Just look for Juan Valdez.
Right.
Buenos dias.
I just saw Juan Valdez.
Of course. He's on every pack of Colombian coffee. When you see him, you know you're getting the richest coffee in the world.
Oh.
If you want 100% Colombian coffee, just look for Juan Valdez. You can't miss him.
Some women really know how to take it easy. They're using new TAMPAX Combak. It just may be the easiest tampon yet. Easy to carry because the applicator is small. Easy to use because it's made of smooth plastic with a gently rounded tip. New TAMPAX Combak. Easy to use, easy to carry. What could be easier?
When Peter Nygaard's family left their native Finland in 1952 to emigrate to Canada, they were not allowed to take anything with them. They arrived in the small prairie town of Deloraine, Manitoba, and not long after were literally forced to sell the coats off their backs to buy food. Today, Peter Nygaard, I suppose you could say, is still selling clothing, this time to the tune of some $200 million annually in business. That business is called Nygaard International, and though it emphasizes its glamorous and expensive end more and more each year, it was built on the desire of the average Canadian woman to have inexpensive, ready-to-wear clothing. That's why they called him, for a time, the king of polyester. He's outgrown that, but even while they were calling him that, he had an appetite for the glamorous life as well. This means beautiful women, some of the things that money can buy, international jet setting. He is one of our most successful and most colorful businessmen. A real success story. Welcome, Peter Nygaard, to Lifetime.
Well, thank you. There sounds like a wonderful introduction.
Your whole life flashing before you like that. What do you remember what do you remember of Deloraine? You're not very old when you went there. This was a town without running water at that time?
Oh, I remember, first of all, the people. The people were fantastic. But it is true. We didn't have running water. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We were very, very poor. We were living in a converted coal bin at the time, and we didn't know how to speak English. The church gathered up donations for us. People sewed together a blanket, a rag blanket, so we wouldn't freeze at night.
You had not been poor people in Finland. Your family had been quite well-to-do, but you had to leave it all behind?
Yeah, my parents were very successful in Finland, and as many immigrants have it, they have to give up everything and start literally from the beginning. In fact, lower than the beginning, and so we've been up there, we've been right down with the poorest people in the world, and now sort of enjoying it.
The work ethic was nothing strange to your family. Your dad had it, his whole family had it. They were all business people, right?
Yeah, my whole family, father and mother, and indeed all my cousins. Now that I examine 20 cousins, everyone is in their own business. My sister, my mom and dad, the whole family tree has been in their own business.
How hard did your dad have to work to get a foothold? You eventually went from Deloraine into Winnipeg, and that's where you spent your teenage years.
My father and mother both worked literally 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. My father was a baker working for, unfortunately, an alcoholic man, and he carried the whole bakery and then had to stand by Saturday nights to make sure that he got his $35 a week that he was getting, and which we needed to live on, and so the guy didn't drink it away. My mom was a maid, scrub woman, cleaned floors and closets and did windows. So they were working all the time. We, the kids, our job was to collect bottles from the ditches so we could get drinking water. Our job was to get the drinking water. We didn't have any running water, so we'd have a drinking water. It cost 25 cents a pail just to drink the water. And we'd have to get so many bottles, you know, and otherwise no
You've
water.
melted snow for water. This is
melted
something that
snow,
I've done.
yeah, melted snow we washed. We had a big rusty barrel beside the stove. We'd melt that snow to wash. We'd have, it was 40 below in Deloraine or more. Then we'd have a sort of a tube to go in the outside. We'd take the snow and put it on top of us, and the cold air would hit us in the face. Before going to bed, we'd have to walk about 50 yards down and to go to the washroom, outdoor toilets. It's cold. Sometimes we'd rather not do it.
You never forget that, do you? Even though you have a home in Malibu and one in Lyford Key, or is it Marina Del Rey that your home is? And
you never forget that. And I don't think to this day, in spite of the fact of all this glamour, really can't spend the money people of my equivalent do. You never really forget how tight the dollars were, and you remember being there. And it stays permanently in your mind.
You and I have something in common. We were both stock boys in grocery stores, but you're on record as saying you were the best stock boy ever. You worked so hard.
Besides you, of course.
I wasn't that great, but you worked very hard at that.
Be careful. Well, I think what I was trying to say is that people ask, how do you become successful? And I just trying to say that every single job I did, I always wanted to make damn sure that I did it the best way. And I remember rising in the stock, grocery stores to the top. I don't know if you recall, you go from bagging groceries to checkouts, and then you go and stock shelves and you go to groceries and meat department. And gradually, I was the night man. I used to stock the shelves at night before they had the fire systems. And I was a manager on the summer times for them at the age of 16. I'd relieve the managers. So I sort of seemed to have risen to the top at the time. And
you also, and I want to talk about Nygaard International today, but you also worked in carnivals. Guess your age and weight.
Oh, God, I did everything.
You can't win at that. How do you guess someone's age, especially if it's a lady?
Well, you did it within 2 years, and you can really catch it within 2 years. It isn't really that difficult to do. Plus or minus 2 years, you have a 4-year range. Weight, you sort of have fun with them, you touch a little bit, and the women particularly like it, and particularly if you guess them younger and lighter. They were absolutely happy to give out their money as long as you... So here, give me some more.
You, of course, are famous for your love of women. Yeah, we could say that. You like beautiful women. You like being around them. People think you're a lifelong bachelor. You've actually been married twice.
Once.
Okay.
She left me, and I got hurt, so I didn't do it again.
But the fact is that you're a tough guy for relationships because you put so much into your work. I mean, you believe that you have to do that even at your level.
Yeah. I really never worked at my social relationships. That's why my wife left me. It was simply because she said, I'm losing you to the business. That's your number one love. And I tried, and it's difficult for me to come second. And I've always put in secondary position to this day. And as much as I do care for the opposite sex, it holds such a secondary position, nevertheless, in terms of allocation of time, that I've been sort of wandering around as a bachelor and looking for the right thing to happen. I mean, the women really don't want to put up with that. They want you to work at it. They want to build a relationship. They want to be number one, and I don't blame them. But I can't do that. So I don't work at it, and I don't want it to be work, and so that's where I have my major problem as far as hanging on to one long enough.
Some fun for a while, and then back to work. Let's show what that work is building to. We have some VTR. We were talking between ourselves before we started here. The fashion business is getting to be fun here. Let's show the people how much fun it's getting to be as we come up on the monitor here. And this is a fashion show at your Nygaard International headquarters, I believe. And
Well, we had a great opening in our building last June, 4-day, 5-day event where we did a fashion show.
Here are the models in beautiful array there. That's one of the lines. You have so many lines going now. What did we catch a glimpse of there?
A little bit of Bianca line, which is our moderately priced line, actually a better line. We have basically Tanjay Classics, which what you mentioned came from the polyester era. Then we went to Tanjay International, which blends polyesters and cottons and polyester wools, which is higher fashion line. Then this line you saw was the Bianca line, which deals with 100% pure wools and cottons. And now we're all the way up to the signature line. So we're really covering all aspects of moderate to all the way to designer wear right now.
True enough to say that in addition to hard work and obviously a sense for the business, at a time when everyone was concentrating on young looks, miniskirts and so on in the late 60s and so on, you thought of the older woman with the less than perfect figure, and that has been a very, very smart thing for you to do, that the business business has flowed from that.
Yeah, you know, I was lucky that I wasn't brought up in this industry. So I kept hearing everybody's under the age of 25, you know, miniskirts were in. We did a survey, actually, on our hand tags and asked customers what they like, what they don't like about product today. They thanked us for asking. They said, thank you, this is wonderful that somebody should even care about us, you know, and ask the question, and please give us skirts that are long enough. And I had the courage to listen to my customers and go against popular trends. And, you know, at the age of 24, 25, you know, trying to get advice from your contemporaries was the way to do it. Except I had the courage to stay with it, and I was one of the few who took the track and dealt with that customer profile, who was over age 25 and who had a lot of disposable income, who wanted clothes, conservative clothes, yet fashionable clothes, and bang, we took off.
Let's, just as we conclude here, just show a little clip of another secret to your success. You have turned your offices into show places, so you never have to go anywhere else. This is the new Nygaard International building in Toronto, right?
Yes, this is before we completely finished it. But we have our showrooms there. We have our entertainment center, our fashion centers, and it's even a place where I live. I don't spend any time going back and forth between my office and my show place.
We didn't get a look at the famous waterfall and the retractable roof, but we know it's all there. And your legend's getting quite well written in this country. It's fun to have you here today, and I think someone who's a success story based on something fairly simple, and that's just getting at it and doing something you love.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Peter Nygaard. Now, over to Jayne Eastwood.
Thank you, Peter. Now, we think we know all the Disney characters, from Mickey to Minnie, from Donald to Goofy, but Disney World is a huge place with lots of people behind the scenes. We're going to look at Disney's working world next. Oh, how you doing? How's the Mickey?
Not many people know about this place. Tucked into the trees, overlooking the lake. But those who do come for the food, especially the salmon. Tender, succulent, and made marvelous with real mayonnaise. The kind made with whole eggs. The kind made with lemon. The kind made mayonnaising by Kraft.
Excuse me, let's talk about gums now. Now, I know, you don't think gums are your problem, yet most people eventually end up with inflamed gums caused by plaque buildup. But you can help prevent that. Start using Listerine. Listerine is clinically proven to help prevent inflamed gums caused by plaque buildup. So rinse with Listerine twice a day. Because you shouldn't ignore your gums.
We wish you sunshine every day. We hope the best things come your way. And with your box of Kellogg's corn, we give the best to you each morn. This is the taste of golden flakes. This is the crispy crunch that makes every box of Kellogg's corn our very best to you each morn.
Steak and tomatoes, give them a break from potatoes. The answer, of course, lifts to noodles and sauce. They go side by side in just 7 minutes from pot to plate. Rich, saucy noodles that taste so great. The right dish, of course, Lipton noodles and sauce that go side by side. The tasty side dish, of course, Lipton noodles and sauce.
And try pasta and sauce.
That go side by side by side.
Oh, excuse me. Well, now, if you've heard that real estate joke, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida I can sell you. You might be surprised at the next item. Kirsten Nielsen is going to tell us if that could be a good investment, swampland. It just depends on who's doing the buying.
About 23 years ago, a man named Walt Disney bought a big piece of property in Central Florida. A lot of it was swampy, and no one seemed to want it. The inhabitants at that time would lie quietly in the sun and while away the days. Well, they're still here on part of the land, but just down the road, something fantastic happened. Walt Disney World grew out of the swamps, and the Magic Kingdom became a haven for different kinds of animals and their visitors. And there are lots of visitors, over 20 million a year. And when they walk into Disney World, they see everything that's, well, everything that's Disney. Enough to tire even the most enthusiastic children, not to mention parents. But what people don't see is all the work that goes into making this place work the best way Disney knows how. There are huge kitchens that are called upon to bake thousands of pizzas a day. A wastewater treatment plant where water is recycled and tested for purity. The computer center that can tell what's going on and when. And can you imagine the garbage that is left here? 50 or 60,000 people a day leaving bits of everything they consume all over the 100-acre park. It's all got to go because a dirty Disney World is the last thing Walt would have wanted.
You know, we have a very strong philosophy within our corporation about cleanliness in the parks, all right? And in trying to do that, we feel as though our guests come in and they're looking for that great experience, and having a clean environment is part of that experience.
The challenge, of course, is how to do it. Well, early in the morning, the streets are steam cleaned and the merry-go-round is polished. When the park opens, over 100 custodians patrol the streets with a sharp eye and usually a very quick broom. There are 1,000 waste cans in the park, and once the trash reaches here, the magic starts. The can is emptied into this collection depot. It's part of the AVAC system, or automatic vacuum collection. There are 16 of these collection points in the park. The lid is sealed, and pretty soon the light comes on. And with a hefty whoosh, the garbage is sucked out of here. It goes through part of the 4 miles of underground tubes and out here to be compacted and trucked away. Imagine if it was just this easy at home. And oh yes, some things still have to be cleaned up the old-fashioned way. The garbage tubes aren't the only things underneath the Magic Kingdom. There's a huge tunnel network below the grounds, so maintenance, food, and cast members can move around without disturbing the visitors. It means Mickey can disappear in Fantasyland for a coffee break and appear in the parade minutes later.
Let's all give a cheer. Woo!
This kind of production happens all the time, and it takes a lot of work. Floats have to be built in the shops and stored out of sight until it's parade time. Then they get lined up to go while the performers have a chance to limber up. This is part of the world's largest closet. Actually, it's the world's largest wardrobe collection. There are costumes for Minnie and her friends, the famous animated characters, and all 18,000 employees. That adds up to about 2 million pieces of clothing. And if you think you have problems losing socks in the dryer and keeping the kids clothed, imagine how Tom Linville feels.
Oh, gee, just keeping track of it is a major activity for us, you can imagine. Really, our main concern is the look of the costume on the individual, on the employee that's actually working on stage or backstage. And really the wear of the costume is dictated more by the laundry and dry cleaning than it is by the person wearing it. So really what wears the clothes out every day, day in, day out, is the constant laundry and dry cleaning over and over again. So we have a lot to keep track of every day, we really do.
Fortunately, it only has to be sent down the block to the Disney Laundry. And in the next room, sewing machines work hard to repair all sorts of rips, tears, broken zippers, and buttons. This is also where Disney character costumes are designed and made. New styles are needed for every new event. These sketches are for a show called America, the Musical. And so Walt Disney's swamps have turned into a small, efficient city. He wanted the best for his visitors, and everyone working here today, decades later, is committed to making that happen.
There it is, God's own golf ball. You've been to Disney World. You had a good time. What was your favorite part?
Peter, it's a wonderful place, and it's hard to say what my favorite part is, but I remember standing in the lobby, and my husband and I, we didn't have any kids at the time, but we were there. We were depressed because we didn't have reservations, and I was kind of standing in the lobby like this, and I felt this great big paw on my shoulder, and it was Goofy saying, well, how are you doing? Are you having a good time? And it's impossible to be depressed in a situation like that, you know?
Great ambassadors for, I guess, good feelings.
Absolutely.
Okay. When we return, though, we will look at a medical subject and try to tell you that if you had radiation therapy in the past, say in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, you should let your doctor know about it, and we'll tell you why. And when we return, I'm going to go join my guest.
Good. We'll be right back.
So come on, bacon with the bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. Bacon, baby, bacon. Good time, great taste. A McDonald's.
Your day is too full to let arthritis pain slow you down. Introducing long-lasting Arthricin, timed-release arthritis pain relief that lasts up to 12 full hours, so you can too. Arthricin.
First he'd be an hour late for dinner, then 2, then one night he just didn't come home. I was devastated, but the truth was she was giving him what he really hungered for.
This would be our little secret.
Now I give him nothing but Purina Meow Mix. Did you know it's the only food with the taste of tuna, liver, and chicken? It's what he always asked for. I guess I just wasn't listening.
Purina Meow Mix. If you don't feed it to your cat, who will?
This will be our little secret. Can I make a sandwich?
I don't know, can you?
No problem. Spice salami. Floaty. I get ya. Back. Space sandwich.
What is it? I don't know, but it makes great sandwiches.
Maple Leaf Value. The right taste at the right price. It's today's wise choice.
Radiation therapy. Back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, exposure to low-level radiation was seen as a highly effective treatment for everything from excess facial hair to acne. That was, of course, some time ago. Now, there is speculation that that kind of exposure may lead to health problems later in life. We are certainly more cautious with radiation treatment than we used to be. Let's put this issue in perspective today on Lifetime with the two gentlemen who join me now. Dr. Irving Rosen is to my immediate left. He is a surgeon at the Mount Sinai Hospital here in Toronto and an associate professor of surgery at the University of Toronto. Very interested in this area. There needs to be increased public awareness. We'll talk about why. Stephen Labo is a lawyer, actually a patient of Dr. Rosen's, and he had radiation treatment way back in '63, you were just a kid, for a cough that wouldn't go away. Some 25 years later, I guess, you had cancer of the thyroid, and while that's not a terribly serious form of cancer, it could have been more serious if it wasn't checked. Dr. Rosen, we're not going to stand up here today and say everyone who is exposed to X-rays is going to get cancer. That's simply not true. But we need to get a sense of how far we've come with this treatment and what it's been used for in the past.
It's a voluminous question, Peter,
Okay.
but you know, the discovery of X-ray goes right back to Marie Curie, who herself died of a malignancy as a consequence of her exposure, and since that time, of course, it's been refined into two very powerful tools that are absolutely essential to the maintenance of health today. One, of course, the use of diagnostic X-rays like chest X-rays or X-rays of the breast or mammograms that obviously make diagnosis and help people maintain their health.
They're life-saving, in other words,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And the other form of X-ray is therapeutic X-ray. And this is a form of X-ray that's used to fight cancer, and it's a very, very effective tool and has saved the lives of millions of people with cancer. And we're not talking about those things. We're really talking about a form of radiation that was used for relatively benign conditions, particularly in the head and neck area, not effective but not absolutely essential, and have permitted the emergence of undesirable problems like tumors and malignancies.
So when these benign conditions that were treated, one of them was hirsutism, excess facial hair, which of course in the female is undesirable, and facial acne, eczema.
That's right.
What would actually happen? How would the treatment take place?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, because I was treated for acne. It was not uncommon in my generation, as a matter of fact. It was very effective.
This is in the 50s then we're talking about?
I think we're going back a little earlier.
Young-looking man.
Thank you. And it meant, and I can't recall the specific details, and most patients can't. And this is why it's important that physicians be a little persistent in getting a history. But most patients can't recall the exact details, the number of visits. But they were exposed to a machine, usually with some kind of shielding of their eyes or their body. And that would be it. It would be usually in the office of a dermatologist, sometimes a radiologist. And the types of conditions that were treated not only included acne, as you've mentioned, it included skin tumors like hemangiomas in childhood, it included eczema, it included fungus infections of the scalp, included a number of such things.
Well, let's find out what happened to Stephen Labo. This is 1963.
Right.
You have a cough and it won't go away. Tell me what you remember about that and about the treatment.
Well, I remember going to a slew of ear, nose, and throat specialists. No one could figure out why this cough was there. After having my tonsils removed to see if that would help and finding out that it didn't, one of the doctors suggested radiation therapy. And I would go down to the Children's Hospital in Montreal once or twice a week, sit under an X-ray machine for about 3 or 4 seconds. That's it. That
Shielded in any way, Stephen?
I don't recall being shielded in any way, but it was a machine that was focused just above my throat.
You feel, with X-rays at the dentist, for example, that nothing's happening, and yet the shielding equipment, every year you go back, gets thicker, more elaborate. We really, at the time that Stephen was getting this, did not have enough respect for this kind of treatment, right?
Well, let's make it awareness rather than respect. We all had a general idea of the problem, but I think we're being, the experiences has shown us today that we have to, as you put it, have a little more respect for the modality, particularly in situations like dental X-rays.
Would this seem standard medical practice, though, for this persistent cough, the X-ray at that time back in '63? Would
Well,
you know that?
I have no idea what Stephen's condition was precisely, and it's impossible to really make a judgment. But certainly radiation is used at one time in children for repeated upper respiratory infections that were erroneously connected with an enlarged thymus, which is an organ in the upper chest, and that wasn't uncommon. And I even have colleagues at the hospital who've received radiation for that reason in their childhood. So this was not uncommon.
The condition went away?
The condition went away. We since found out when I was about 16 that it was probably an allergic cough.
So you were having a reaction to something, and because that hadn't been isolated, you got every treatment in the book, including radiation therapy.
Correct.
How soon did you begin to realize in your later life, in your adult life, that you had a problem with your thyroid and that it could be related to radiation?
Well, I didn't. I went for a
an annual medical checkup. The doctor I went to is very thorough and found what he thought was a growth on my thyroid, sent me for further tests, and I was told then that there was a very strong chance, based upon the fact that I was male and had had X-ray treatments, that it was a malignancy and would have to be removed.
And out it came, and here's the doctor who did it. Two very key points here. One, annual checkup.
Right.
And B, because he knew his medical history, he could make some explorations that might not come normally, right?
Right. His family physician's informed and obviously very highly competent doctor.
Was this a life-threatening condition, the malignancy in the thyroid?
Well, in theory, yes. Fortunately, most of the side effects to this type of radiation takes a rather benign form, including this type of thyroid cancer. In Steve's age group particularly, it takes a very unaggressive approach, and it has a course rather, and it has a 100% curability rate. That changes with time.
You got it in the nick of time, and of course you were terrified because of the word cancer, and then realized that not every cancer kills, and that cancers can be stopped. And now you're living a life, but coming out to tell people, what message do you want to give today, Stephen, based on your experience?
Well, aside from the fact that I was thrilled with my general practitioner previously and more so now, and feel the need for people to really have annual physicals, which I've been doing in any case, I sort of feel that it might be a good idea to ask people as a standard question if they've ever had any kind of radiation treatment. They ask all kinds of other questions.
Dr. Rosen's good thinking on his part. I mean,
sure.
How widespread is this knowledge among GPs now that you must ask this kind of question?
I think it is quite widespread, but it's not always asked, and I think it is appropriate to ask. But certainly, if a patient presents with a problem in the head neck, or the breast area in particular, it's certainly worthwhile to get a history of exposure to radiation. But I'd just like to emphasize that our discussion here shouldn't induce in people who may have had exposure to radiation a kind of a panic. We're talking still about a very minuscule type of a problem which is highly amenable to standard, relatively simple treatment.
We do nonetheless protect ourselves in a much better way than we used to. When we
wear seat belts now when we drive in cars, and we never used to do that either.
Okay, let's shut off some other alarms. I used to go to Eaton's when I was a kid and put my foot on that X-ray machine. You could see all the bones in your foot. Am I going to get some kind of?
I think every person I've ever spoken to has the same experience that you've had. I certainly have had that. To my knowledge, nobody's related this with anything bad.
But the fact is that it is radiation, that you have been exposed, and that if you have, let your doctor know and come back. How many cases like Stephen have you come across in your time of people with a background in this kind of thing? Well,
the incidence is increasing. We have collected well over 100 such patients as Steve, and currently about almost quarter to a third of the patients undergoing thyroid surgery by myself have a history of radiation as Steve has described.
So it should be part of an elaborate medical history, and you should give it to your doctor. We don't want to sound an alarm bell, but we do want to sound a word of caution. Dr. Irving Rosen and Stephen Labo, thank you for coming and joining us with this subject today. And Jane, now I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Peter, enjoying your retirement years depends on whether you've planned ahead, got together a nest egg. The time to start is right now, and Kim Ball is here to show us how. Next.
On the left, the 1989 Nissan Pulsar, and on the right, the 88 Pulsar. Both put fun back into your driving, but the 88 will have you laughing all the way to the bank. On the left, the 1989 Nissan Sentra, and on the right, the 88 Sentra. Both provide the utmost in reliability, but the 88 now comes with something else you can rely on.
Fringe? Festival? Fringe Festival. A 10-day extravaganza of live theater September 9th through 18th. Over 100 theater companies from Vancouver and around the world will light up 11 venues in Vancouver's Main Street, Mount Pleasant area. All shows $5 or less. Complete program information the September 2nd Georgia Strait. Drama, cabaret, dance, comedy, musicals, clowns. the 4th Annual Vancouver Fringe Festival. Just you wait.
That was Beethoven's 5th Symphony, newly recorded especially for a treasury of golden classics. This superb collection also features the music of Tchaikovsky and Mozart. You'll hear thrilling overtures, haunting sonatas. Plus, you'll get the greatest hits of the 17th century and this collection of Strauss waltzes, both absolutely free.
Have your credit card ready and call 643-8081. That's 643-8081. Or send $24.95 for 5 LPs or 5 cassettes, $34.95 for CDs plus $4 shipping to Treasury of Golden Classics, Box 9000, 444 Robson Street, Vancouver.
If you are hoping for a retirement on Golden Pond, you better start getting your gold together now. And that means a good, sound pre-retirement planning. And to gold me on, I'm banking on Kim Ball. Hi, Kim. Thank you for coming. I hope you can help us all out here.
I'm going to try.
Now, the first thing I'm going to ask you, when you retire, where will your money be? What sources of income will we have?
Well, you'll have 3 people to rely on. The first person to rely on is the government. Not a wise plan, but it'll be a major source of income.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of government-sponsored retirement plans.
Yeah.
Then the second person, of course, is your employer, your boss, because he too will provide a source of income if you've been working. And then the third person is you. Now, I don't have to tell you which of those 3 is the most reliable.
Well, I'm not sure yet. Actually, let's break this down. Now, if, for instance, if I retire this year, which I'm not going to, but if somebody retires this year and their only source of income is from the government, what kind of a living can they expect to have?
Well, the only thing they have to look forward to, actually, is living at the poverty level.
Really? That bad?
It sounds frightening, and it should be. The really tragic part about that is that most of those poor people will be women. Who are 60 years of age or more, and who truly are trying to eke out a living at the poverty level. And the reason for that is, well, there are probably 2 reasons. The first reason is that one of the major plans is Canada Pension Plan, which pays you a pension as long as you've been working. But you see, if you and I stayed at home to raise the kids and mend the socks and get the meals ready and all those good things, and didn't actually earn an income, then you don't qualify for the Canada pension.
So that's the only thing it's based on, the amount of time that you've been working? It's based on nothing else at all?
Sure, because while you're working, each paycheck you are contributing money into this pot out of which the government will pay you a pension when you retire. Now, if you haven't been working, then there's another major pension to look forward to, and that's called old age security.
That's the automatic
security
one.
Being a very loose term here, right? But at least, you know, we pay you if you grow old. So now, from that, you'll get, at this point in time, about roughly $6,000. You'll pick up about
$6,000
a year.
God in heaven.
Pick up $4,000 a year from your old age pension. So now you've worked 40 years of your life and you've grown old, and the government will pay you to stop working and just continue to be old. And for that wonderful feat, they'll pay you about $10,000 a year, and that's about poverty level.
That's really scary.
Good.
Now, yes, it is good to be scared.
Sure.
You're right. Now, if you are in the workforce, what can you expect?
Well,
if you've been working 30 years, maybe.
That depends a lot on your employer. If he provided for this, then you will get a pension from the company. The interesting thing is that we all think that everyone's going to have one, and the truth of the matter is that about 30% of all workers don't have that kind of a plan from their employer. Those who do, tremendous variation in the size of the pension. And that depends on how much you put into it. See, all pensions depend on how much is in the pot. And then we eke out a little bit to you, and as long as you live, you'll get a little bit out of the pot.
And you're taxed on this.
Oh, sure.
That is eked out to you, too. I think,
absolutely.
I know, every time I'm reminded of that, I'm just horrified at the thought of that.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's close to being obscene.
It is. It's disgraceful.
To retire, having, worked all of your life, and then you still have to be taxed on this pittance that you're receiving.
Yeah, this
So
is
a lot of problems.
It's very hard not to get really outraged
Isn't
about
it?
this. It is. Now we are at me. What should I do? How do I rely on myself?
Well, I think once you realize that you are the only thing to rely on, you do a lot more sensible things with your money. You begin, in fact, to get yourself a lot of little pots. Because, see, the hard thing to realize is once you retire, you're never going to get another raise.
Right.
Now, when you get a raise, do you save more money? You spend more money. So your spending habits just expand to take up the slack. So what we've got to understand is that you need to put aside a whole series of pots, and then at varying points throughout your retirement, you can bring those pots into your income, and now you're giving yourself a raise.
Should we specify about these pots?
What kind of pot would you like to have?
What's the best kind of pot to do?
Well, there are enormous numbers of these pots, all right? And I use that as a very loose term so people can get a picture of the kinds of things they're trying to do.
Yeah.
You can have things like Canada savings bonds, short-term or long-term deposits, very safe things where your capital is guaranteed, you know how much interest you're going to get. You know, it's a very safe and sound kind of an investment.
Can you tell me which are the safest ones? Just
Well, it depends.
They don't gamble with your money?
I don't think the government's going to gamble with your money.
The government.
You'll either get a guarantee of some kind from the person holding the money. In this case, with Canada savings bonds, the government. So the government guarantees the money.
Right.
If you go into the safe term deposit or guaranteed investment certificate route, then you're covered by the insurance plan covering those deposits. Depending on whether it's a bank, trust company, or credit union, there'll be a different insurer, but the result is always the same. $60,000 is the upper limit of your safety. Now, some of us, of course, have never been in any kind of danger because we never get up that high. But if you do get close to $60,000, then you're very wise to spread those pots around so that you're underneath the limit all of the time.
Oh, this is really interesting. Now, once you do get all these, how much income should you be generating when you retire compared to what you're making now, would you say?
Let me ask you this. What is it that you'd like to give up when you retire?
Absolutely nothing.
Exactly. Now, you see, that's the interesting thing. People always say, well, now, when I retire, I won't need much income. And the truth of the matter is, you don't want to give anything up once you retire. For the first time in your life, you can do the things you want to do. And what's the thing that buys you that? Money.
Yes.
It doesn't buy you happiness, but it allows you to choose your own level of misery.
It buys you a trip to Florida.
That's right. That's right. So you want to have choices. You know, too many of us are trapped into doing specific things because that's all the money we have. So you tell me how much money you want to live on. Now, if you want a kind of general rule of thumb, the usual thing is 70% of your working income is what you want after you retire.
Right.
Now, personally, I don't buy that. I think you need 100%. But then that's the
But you're
kind
saying
of lifestyle I want.
at the bottom it should be 70%, or you're going to be very uncomfortable.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to have some choices, some pleasure, you know, do the
Certainly.
things you want to do, go the places you want to go. Or
I
if you
know.
want to sit on the back porch and watch the grass grow, you might as well own the porch.
That's right. Now you have the money. You've retired. You've done very well. You've used your head. You have the money. How should you manage it now that you're retired and you know that absolutely nothing else is coming in?
Okay. You've got two problems now. You've got to make the money last as long as your breath does.
Yes.
Right? Now, it takes good timing to spend your last buck and draw your last breath on the same day. So that's one problem, making it last. The other problem is that there are a lot of things going to be eating away at the accumulated money. Inflation, the government with its taxes, and so on. So you have to keep replenishing the supply as well. So, you know, it's a juggling act, really, of trying to continue to accumulate money and yet to make sure you've got enough to last.
Right.
And there are lots of mechanisms for doing that. You can continue making the money grow. That's, you know, you've learned that, hopefully, over your 20 or 30 years of accumulation.
Yes.
Making it last is trickier. And that, I think at that point in time, you need to sit down with a money advisor, financial advisor of some kind, talk about what it is you want to have, how long you want the money to last. You know, a lot of factors in your background. If your mother died at 167 and your father at 232, the chances are you're going to live a long time too. So you need to, you know, to think about
Make
those
that
things.
last and juggle. Hey, we've got to go. Thank you very much for coming on, Kim. You've been very helpful. Thank you. And when we come back, we'll be meeting Elmer Olson. He has a job that many men would love to have. He discovers beautiful women. He is a model scout. We'll be right back.
Chef Boyardee.
Ravioli, beefaroni, spaghetti and meatballs. When children find food this much fun to eat, why tell them it's good for them?
Chef Boyardee.
Tonight, get ready for an evening of superb Major League Baseball right here on CTV when the Blue Jays meet the Detroit Tigers. Will the Blue Jays be able to tame the Tigers' hot bats, led by the always dangerous Alan Trammell? And will the Jays manage to find the weaknesses in Detroit's confident pitching staff? The action is always the best it can be when these teams meet. Don't miss it. The Jays and the Tigers tonight here on CTV.
I give you one milkbone 'cause it's good to chew. I'll give you two just because you are you. I'll give you three just to see you smile. That big, bright, green, white milkbone smile.
Milkbone, the only dog biscuit made with real milk, because your dog's teeth deserve the best.
I know for certain and I love you.
A host of stars are on the rise